Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus pilot, and in today's video we are going to do the 5th tutorial for the iniBuilds A300. This one is going to feature the taxi out and the lineup on the runway all the way to the point where we can initiate our takeoff. So we've just completed our pushback. Let's go back inside and have a look at where we actually are. So we're going to grab the airport chart over here. We just pushed back from our cargo ramp at Minneapolis, and runway 12 right is going to be our departure runway. So the taxi is going to be straight out via Tango, right on a Yankee, and then holding point Whiskey 10. Okay, if you're ready for that, let's go for it. So taxi clearance is obtained, then we turn the nose light at taxi, and we're also going to switch the runway turn off lights on. Okay, then the brakes can be released, and the airplane is going to roll just fine in idle thrust. You can see it starts to taxi immediately with the engines in idle. As soon as the plane is moving and we're on a straight line, so don't stop in a turn, we're going to run the brake check. And I'm now pressing my brake pedals, and we observe zero pressure on the accumulator. Now, zero is important. This is easy to confuse, but the accumulator shows you the pressure in the backup system. And we, however, want to check that our primary system is working. So by checking pressure 0, we can see that the braking is actually happening through our primary brake system and not through the alternate brake system, which is indicated on the accumulator gauge. Make sense? Okay. So, we're on our way out now, so let's talk about a couple of basics about taxiing a wide-body aircraft. We are sitting quite far in front of the nose gear and certainly of the main gear. So if you just have a look outside, the nose gear is located here on the door. That's like 3 to 4 meters behind us. The main gear is over 20 meters behind us. Therefore, in order to keep our airplane on the taxiway center line, we'll need to make sure that the main gear stays on the center line. That means we need to oversteer with our nose wheel. So we are going to overshoot with the flight deck, and then we are going to initiate our turn. Also, since we've got carbon brakes fitted to the airplane, we don't want to apply the brakes too often. So let the plane accelerate for a bit, and then use a constant smooth brake application, but only use one brake application in order to reduce your speed again. Enter the turns at something like 6 or 7 knots, and then even with the airplane slightly accelerating in the turn, you will be safe. Okay, so let's view that. We want to turn to the right, so we are overturning a bit with the flight deck, and now we're going to start our turn. This is what it looks like from the outside. As you can see, the flight deck is overshooting, but the main gear is ending up just on the center line. And that is how we are going to taxi the airplane. Also, you can see it's already accelerated to 10 knots again, so it's accelerating pretty quickly over here. Those are the basics of taxiing an Airbus widebody. Now, we just let it accelerate again, all the way up to 30 knots, and then we're going to slow it down again. Speed limits are maximum of 10 knots in turns, maximum 15 knots on aprons, 30 knots on straight taxiways, and 50 knots when backtracking a runway. Alright, try to minimize your brake applications in order to keep the brake temperatures down. So you can see I let it accelerate, and now I'm slightly applying the brakes again in order to reduce my speed to stop at the holding bar. Now, when you're doing that, keep in mind you've got a huge area in front of your plane that is getting blocked out. So when you're taxiing up to a holding position, it's easier to look out a little bit to the side over here and stop the plane just in front of it, rather than still have that hold short bar visible in front of you. Like, there is a huge cutoff angle. Look at what we can see over here, where the taxi line is just starting to turn, and now we go to the outside and we look at this. So this is the entire area that you cannot see from the cockpit. Therefore, if you stop your airplane with the hold short line still inside, that means the entire airplane would be far to the back, and there is a huge chance with a wide body that if somebody is taxiing on the taxiway behind you and you are stopping too far behind, that they might smash their wings into your tailplane. For that reason, make sure that you're taxiing the airplane all the way up front to the whole throttle line, like I did just here. And again, if we return to the cockpit, that is what it looks like. So this is where the whole throttle line is right now. And we could have gone even a little bit further front. As you can see, like, we could have done another 2 meters or so, but this is fine for a distance as well. So that's something to take into account when you are taxiing your airplane. Now, when you start your taxi out, you got a couple of checks to do, as always, which we are going to carry out right now. You can do them while you are rolling. However, if you do that, then just carefully keep in mind that you are actively steering the airplane. Okay, so our taxi procedure is as follows. First of all, we do the flight control check. So select the flight control page down here on the eCam. And then let's go. Full up, full down, neutral. Full left, full right. Make sure that the rolled spoilers are coming up as well. And neutral. And the rudder. Full left, full right, neutral. Okay, so with that flight control check can also be done on the ground, by the way, before you even start to taxi the airplane. That is permissible. Okay, so with all of that done, the pilot flying is just going to have another look over the FCU, make sure that all the numbers are set correctly, and then we just gotta think about our departure briefing again. Has anything changed since we did our briefing? Is everything still the way it is supposed to be? Well, yes, in our case today it is. Otherwise, you would at this point update your colleague on anything that might have changed. For example, it might have started to rain, requiring the use of anti-ice, or to recalculate your takeoff speeds using the wet option. Stuff like that. Just think about it when you are taxiing out. When that is done, we can now start our taxi flow, which is auto brake max, speed brake, check armed, transponder, TARA, weather radar, on, and takeoff config test. In order to test the takeoff config, we need to release our park and brake for a moment, so let's release it, and I'll use manual braking here. And then we've got the takeoff config test button down here. Press that. That's looking good. Alright, so here it is. Config, takeoff test normal. Alright. So, when all of that is done, we can call for the before takeoff checklist down to the line. Again, we are going to get that from the My Flight app. So here we go. Flight controls, checked. Flight instruments, checked. Briefing, confirmed. V1, VRV2 flex temp. So we've got 151, 155, 163, and flex 60. Slats and flaps, 15, 15. Takeoff config, normal. Before takeoff checklist complete, down to the line. Alright, and with that, we have completed our taxi flow, so now we can go ahead and line up on the runway. Now, there's two different philosophies on lining up an Airbus wide-body airplane. If we have a look at the outside, you can see that we've got that boogie landing gear here with 2 wheels on it. Now, that means that when we're taking a tight turn, the wheels can skid a little bit above the taxiway. So when we are doing that, and when we're lining up, then a little bit of skidding might occur on the wheels, increasing the wear and tear of our wheels and of the tires. However, the takeoff performance is calculated using a 45 meters lineup allowance. That means that we can't just follow the lead offline, but we need to make it a little bit tighter. Now, the exact Airbus procedure is to take a very tight turn right on the runway and to stop the airplane prior to initiation of the takeoff roll. So a rolling takeoff is not recommended. However, many pilots are going to make a little bit smoother roll-on in order to relieve some of the stress from the main gear boogies. Both is acceptable. However, the procedure by the book is to make it a tight lineup. Okay then, so lineup clearance is received, so let's go ahead and check that the brake fan is off. We are going to turn on all the lights. Also turn the strobe light on. The auto position is only going to turn the lights on when the air ground system senses that we're in the air. However, by turning it on manually, we can make sure that the strobes illuminate as soon as we actually start to line up on the runway, which is where we are technically required to have them on. The nose wheel is going to be switched to takeoff only once actual takeoff clearance is received. Okay, if you've got a runway with standing water, heavy rain or expected heavy rain or turbulence after takeoff, that is not the case today, then we would turn the ignition into continuous, but as I mentioned, is not the case today, so we are going to keep it on off. The packs, if required, can be selected off for the takeoff now, so that the pack valve buttons you've got over here and over here, but we calculated with the packs on, so we're going to leave them on. Finally, the TCAS is checked to be in TARA, and with that we can call for the before takeoff checklist below the line. So that's transponder, set, TCAS, TARA, auto brake, max, and ignition as required, and as I just explained, we're going to keep it off for today's takeoff. Alright, and that's the before takeoff checklist complete. So let's release the brake, and I'm going to show you how to do the lineup on the runway. So as mentioned, the airplane rolls nicely on idle thrust, so we don't need any thrust to get it going, but we might need a little thrust in order to get it through the turn. The widebody Airbuses have a good tendency to lose some speed as you're turning. Therefore, a little bit of thrust on the outboard engine, so number 1 in our case, might be needed in order to aid with the line-up procedure. Okay, keep the speed under control, no more than 10 knots, and for the lineup we can actually use a bit less, because it is going to be a very sharp turn. We oversteer with the flight deck, and only then we are going to initiate our turn, so that the airplane nicely lines up with the runway center line. This way we can assure that we have the most runway available straight in front of us for the takeoff. Let's have a look from the outside. And you can see I still use quite a bit of runway in order to line up over here. However, imagine if we followed that line, then we would be standing like here now, which is, 30 meters of runway lost. Alright, so with that we are now all the way prepared for takeoff, but that is going to be a topic for a separate video. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, do let me know in the comments below. And hit that like button in order to let me know that you actually liked the video. If you're up for more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you really love what I'm doing over here, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I see you all again on the next one.